The doors to the Viridian Tea House are open once more. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and I want to wish you an early and happy Thanksgiving. Whether you're eating turkey or pizza or Chinese food or what have you, I hope that your Thanksgiving is one of good times and a chance to relax. I've got some good news. There is a new tea blend on the way. It is imported tea from Pluto. This is a white tea blend mixed with cacao nibs and peppermint. I'm not really sure when I'm going to release it, but it is going to be sometime this week. So if you follow me on Etsy or on social media, you'll know when I drop it. And also too, my Etsy store does have a sale going on. So everything in the store, books, art, is books, art, and tea. It's all, I think, 20% off, and you can see the percentage taken off when you check out. So, get some good deals. Oh yes, and I will be selling books, art, and tea at the Denver Magic Makers Market on December the 11th. I will put information on the YouTube video, so if you live in Denver or you live in Colorado or you're going to be visiting Colorado, it is on a Sunday. I think it's from 11 to 4. So if you're looking for some really cool witchy items, check it out. This is my first time being a vendor, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you to the people who are running the show. I'm ready to do this. So instead of a review today, we're going to do Tea and Tales. This reading is the Boxcar Baby. It's the first book in the Steel Root series by J.L. Mulvihill. She is one hell of a writer. I love her work. I truly do. And I hope that she will just continue to write and write and write, because I will just be like, just shut up and take my money. So let me read the back of it for you. Born in a boxcar on a train bound for Georgia. At least that's what Papa Steele always told Abigail. But now, 15 years later, the man who adopted and raised her as his own is missing, and it's up to Abigail to find him. And Abigail is spelled capital A, capital B, apostrophe Gale. So, aided only by a motley gang of friends, Abigail train hops her way across the United States in a desperate attempt to find her papa and put her life and family back the way it was. Her only guide is a map given to her by a mysterious hobo with handwritten clues she found hidden in her papa's spyglass. Here is the great American adventure in an alternate steampunk dystopian world, where 15-year-old Abigail Steele learns that nothing is as it seems, but instead is shrouded in secrets and mysteries, and that monsters come in all shapes and forms. If I didn't say it already, this is published through 7 Star Press. There are 3 books out so far. I think Jen's working on the 4th one right now. Jen, back me up on this if you are or not. But I will tell you something, if you start this series, you're gonna blink and several hours have already gone and you're ready for the next book. Excellent series. I love how she incorporates the hobo culture, and it is very steampunk dystopian. So it's just a great series. So once again, I forgot to mention the tea. So this tea is vegan matcha latte from the good folks at Sencha Naturals. You get a view there. This is mixed with mango. And the ingredients behind it is coconut oil powder, organic coconut sugar, soluble fiber, organic Japanese matcha, mango extract, green tea extract, and stevia leaf extract. You can make this either hot or cold, and the instructions are on the back. But seriously, it's really easy to make this. I've already made a couple of cups for my boyfriend and myself, and we've just gone, so creamy. And it's very creamy, very delicious. But I figured this would be perfect to go along with Jen's book. Also, we just had a snowstorm a couple days ago, and I think the temperatures are in the 50s now. but it's still kind of cold. So I figured a nice cup of hot matcha latte and a dystopian steampunk book would be an excellent way to do tea and tales today. So get your tea or whatever liquid you want, wrap yourself up in a blanket, and I'm going to read The Boxcar Baby by J.L. Mulvihill, once again published through 7 Star Press. Let's see. Chapter 1. I have always loved the sound of the train whistle, especially when I hear it from far away. The moaning echo across the valley gives it a sorrowful sound like a piper bird calling for its mate. Sometimes I can imagine the sound as a mournful spirit seeking its long-lost love. Sad as it may sound, it calms me when I hear it at night and lulls me to sleep, or wakes me peacefully in the early morning. Every 2 weeks when I hear the train, I know it's time for Papa to come home. But one morning about 5 weeks ago, Papa didn't come home. I'm pretty sure my granny's going to ask me to go to New Joplin to look for Papa. I really don't mind going to New Joplin. The city is way jiggin', but I've never gone to the city alone before, and I'm sure there's creepers there. Of course, Granny will have it all worked out for me to stay with a friend of hers, but I will still have to go it alone. I need to go, though, because I have to find out what happened to my Papa. We ain't heard from him or the railroad since Papa left for work last. He usually works a few weeks on and a couple of weeks off, but this time he's been gone longer than ever. If Papa doesn't come back, I can't say what will happen to Granny and me. Granny and I waited 4 weeks for Papa, but when he still hadn't come home, we got worried. Granny decided maybe we should go on into Jasper and sell the eggs and milk like we usually do when Papa comes home. So we hitched up the ponies and loaded the cart up and head into town. The town of Jasper is an hour ride from our farm and consists of only a handful of buildings with the essentials. Jasper has been kept alive, just barely, by the local sheer will and the backbone of the proprietors. It's not really much of anything, and there never seems to be any excitement of any sort. Papa once told me that this town used to be on the stagecoach route a long time ago, but when the train started running through New Joplin, people stopped taking the stage, so it stopped running through here. For some reason, though, some folks, out of habit I guess, just stayed in Jasper, in the middle of nowhere. Papa said that's why he chose this area to live, because it was in the middle of nowhere and farthest from the reaches of the system. Ooh. Time for a matcha break. And if you have your tea, take a break. Oh, that's so creamy good. Absolutely delicious. I will say one thing about Sencha Naturals. They also have Sencha lemonade, which is to die for, but then they also have Sencha candy. I tried the one with the dragon fruit. Oh, c'est bon. It was wonderful. I will put their links on the YouTube video as well, but yes, you cannot go wrong with anything from Sencha Naturals. So, back to the story. When Granny and I got into Jasper, we went to the general store where Granny starts her haggling. The owner, Mr. Grimm, is a nice enough man, and he doesn't rip us off. But times is hard, and Granny's always trying to get the best price she can for the milk, eggs, and produce we sell him. Mr. Grimm knows Granny isn't going anywhere to sell her stuff. New Joplin is too far, and besides, the big city folk don't care for buying from the farm folk. They'd rather have the Midlands handle that. While Granny haggles with Mr. Grimm, I like to go over and look at the daily news. Mr. Grimm has a stand full of newspapers and magazines, and sometimes books he gets in once a month. I like to see what's new, even if I've been in that same month. Since I hadn't been in for a while, I figured I'd check the newspaper to see if we missed any big news we need to know about that Papa might be involved in. Last spring, the neighbors had told us about an avalanche they heard about up in the Appalachians that had knocked a train off the tracks and down the mountain. Granny and I don't ever know where Papa goes, so we were worried about him until he got home. It turns out Papa had been way south that time, but he told us he knew the engineer on that train and was real sorry for his family. Papa and some of the other railroad employees tried to get the railroad to pony up some money for his widow and kids to live on, but the railroad didn't really give enough. I don't know whatever happened to that family. I hate it when I hear about those things because I can only imagine if they didn't get enough money, then they probably all got thrown in the working house. If there were any babies, they they for sure were put in the orphanage. I hear Papa talk about the system and how it doesn't have room for poor folk. If you can't pay for your house, schooling, and food, you go to the working house and that's where you stay. What makes things harder is that the schools aren't free, but everybody has to go to school until they're 17 and old enough to pick a job. If you haven't had any schooling, then there's little chance you'll be able to get a decent paying job. Papa says they need some kind of way to help the poor folks out just until they get back on their feet. But that ain't the working house. Once you go into one of those places, you're pretty much there for life. I heard about some folks who slide under the system and live off the land. They call them hobos or transients or something like that. Papa told me he's seen a lot of them around the train yards hopping the trains to get from one place to the next. Sometimes they will work for food or wages paid under the table, but the system doesn't like that. The system would rather have the crushers catch them and throw them in the working house. I wonder sometimes if they don't have enough people in those working houses, and exactly what do they do in there? Granny says the women sew clothes and blankets and things like that, and the men make other things like furniture and parts for equipment. Basically, anything that has to be made comes out of the working houses, and everything is made right here in America. I don't have a problem with that. It's just that it don't seem fair to make someone work there just because they don't have any money. They don't even give them any money, just food and place to sleep. It just doesn't seem right to me. After glancing through the papers in Mr. Grimm's store, I'm glad to see there's nothing in the paper about a train wreck or anything like that. But there isn't anything helpful either. I put the paper down and go peruse through the store. I'm just looking at stuff when I look up out the window and see Holder Dan driving up. Granny sees him too, but we're too late to try to avoid him, so I watch as Granny pulls herself up straight, preparing to meet him. Since Holder Dan is the owner of our land, I guess he's going to want to talk to Granny about the rent money. He's not a very nice man, and Granny and I can't figure out how or why Papa ever went into business with him. Granny doesn't like Holder Dan much either. I don't know why. I used to think it was because he was the landowner, but I think there's something that runs deeper there. Something about Holder Dan that just gets under your skin and makes you itch all over. It's bad enough that he's so tall his suits never seem to really fit him right, so he looks like he belongs in a sideshow in a carnival. He always wears a stupid black bowler hat that looks like it's 2 sizes too small for his head. And even though he has a healthy amount of hair, he insists on filling in it with some nasty smelling grease so that it slicks back like it's glued to his head. His mustache is not much better, as he always either has it trimmed too short or not at all in an attempt to create a handlebar look. All 6 feet of Holder Dan comes into the store with that air of confidence that I don't trust and tips his hat to Granny. "Good day to you, Doris." "Hello, Daniel," Granny says. I can smell that nasty grease from his hair, and it makes me want to gag, and he's wearing that stupid dust jacket he always wears over his clothes when he drives a steamer carriage. He just loves showing off that old rust bucket. Jen, I love this book. Holder Dan has one of them bought steam carriages. He thinks he's all big time just because he's got a steam carriage, but that old thing's nothing but junk. It may look prettier than the one Papa built, but Papa told me once that if you put water and tin together, sooner rather than later, it's going to rot out from under you. That carriage Holder Dan's got is all tin underneath. Holder Dan told Papa he's got a steam carriage from a reputable dealer, and that it's iron ore through and through. Papa and I just laugh at him because one day when his engine blows because his tank rotted and the water leaked out, he'll know better then. We have a steam carriage too, but it's much better than Holder Dan's or any other factory-built ones. There aren't a whole lot of folks around here who have steam carriages, mainly because they're so expensive to buy, but Papa's so smart he just made one. Now we are the envy of all the neighbors. Holder Dan looks over at me and smiles. Well, Abby, aren't you just growing up so fine and pretty? Almost a woman now. Hello, Mr. Dan, I say, but I feel an immediate wave of revulsion by his comment. The way he looks at me and licks his lips like some hungry dog suddenly makes me afraid, and I don't know why. I turn and look at the glass jars on the shelf beside me just to avoid his eyes, because there's something there I don't remember seeing before, and I don't like it. Taking a break? You got your tea? Oh, excuse me. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. I'm probably going to read another chapter, but here we go. Chapter 2. If my lips are green, I apologize. It's the matcha. Chapter 2. Doris, you know the rent is due in a few days. I hope you have it. Holder Dan says to Granny after he realizes that I'm not going to talk to him. Of course we have it, Daniel. Why on earth would you think otherwise? Don't we always have it for you on time every month for the last 16 years? Asked Granny. Well now, Doris, I heard that Bishop hasn't been home for some time now. If something has happened and you have no income, well, you know I just can't let you stay there on charity alone. I'm a businessman. I have to make money, Holder Dan says. What have you heard, Daniel? Says Granny. Just what I told you, Doris, that Bishop hasn't been home for a while. Now I see that he's not with you today as he usually is, and I just assume then that the rumors must be true. Though I would add, and I certainly hope, nothing has happened to him. I stand frozen in shock, not knowing what to do. We hadn't told anybody that Papa hadn't been home, so how did Holder Dan know? How did he know indeed? Daniel, Granny says, taking a deep breath. First of all, I don't know what gossip you've been listening to, but you should mind your own business. Second, you will get your rent money as you always do, whether Bishop is home or not. And third, you should have a little more respect for your elders. It's Mrs. Steele to you, not Doris. With that, Granny stomped out the door. You go, Granny. Holder Dan stood there watching her leave with a smug look on his face. He knew something about Papa, and I stood there wondering what he knew. And how am I going to get that information out of him? I imagined myself trying to strangle it out of him, but realized that would be impossible. Maybe I could grab one of those guns that are for sale behind the counter, but then they weren't loaded. Then I thought about the fact that Mr. Grimm must have a weapon loaded and ready behind the counter in case of emergency. I'm thinking about where he might hide it, but none of this would work anyway. I think the only way to get information out of this guy is to do that girly thing that Janet Mueller always does when she wants one of the boys at school to do something for her, like sharpen her pencil or get her another milk. I've watched Janet work her girl magic on the guys, but I've never quite figured out exactly how she does it. Is it the sound of her voice, or the way she moves her body, or the look in her eyes? It has been a mystery to me ever since Janet has learned how to do it. So I'm wondering if I can try this on Holder Dan, but when I look at him and think about being sweet and nice to him, I just want to puke. I want so badly to find out what that man knows about Papa, but I'm not about to be sweet and nice to him, and I'm not about to blow Granny's bluff. So I run after her, making sure to give Holder Dan a nice, meaningful, nasty glare as I leave. All the way home, Granny is quiet, and I can see her thinking about what to do. Holder Dan was right when he said if Papa didn't come home with his pay, we wouldn't have enough money to pay the rent. Most holders have been known to give some time for their renters to come up with the money, or even work it off. I'm thinking Holder Dan has something in mind for that land, because he seemed awfully interested in whether or not we were going to be able to pay the rent or not. I don't think Holder Dan has done anything to Papa. He's too stupid. What I do think is that Holder Dan will take an opportunity if it presents itself. The question is, what has presented itself, and what does Holder Dan get out of it? Maybe Papa's been thrown in jail for some reason, and Holder Dan knows it and won't say. If that were the case, we could go get him out. Maybe he's hurt and stuck in a hospital somewhere. Of course, Papa would get word to us unless he's unconscious. I realize that the only thing left to do now is to go to New Joplin to the railroad yard to see if Papa's there, and if he's not, then see if anyone there knows where he is. There's no way Granny and I can both go. I know before Granny even asks that I have to be the one to go. Sitting here in this tree, I'm telling myself that it's not as bad as all of that. Besides, hi-oh, Papa. At the age of 2, my real parents abandoned me. They left me alone in a boxcar in the middle of a train station. If it hadn't been for Bishop Steele, I'd been put on an orphanage and then shipped off to the working house when I was old enough. Bishop Steele, the man I called Papa, found me in the boxcar and my kinfolk left me. Papa works for the Southern Railway as a mechanical engineer. Papa said on the day he found me, he'd been working on the Nightingale train at the train yard in Chattanooga when he heard the cry of a baby echoing across the train yard. Papa said he had to walk every stretch of the yard before he finally found the source of the cry was coming from the cutest, red-headed, freckle-faced baby he'd ever seen. He said I'd been tucked in a pile of cotton in an empty boxcar just screaming my head off. He said he leaned in and said, "Hey, little sis, what's all the hubbub?" I stopped crying and looked right at him, smiled, and then rolled out of the cotton and crawled right to him as if he'd always been my Papa. The boxcar Papa found me in had the name A.B. Gale Logs painted on the side. Papa told me he tried to find my real parents, but there wasn't anybody around who would lay claim to me, so he kept me. He named me after that boxcar he found me in and spelled my name just like the sign, A-B-G-A-L-E, minus the log part. My friends just call me Abby. When Papa teases me, he calls me his little boxcar baby. I guess it's better than being a box baby. I read about those boxes they got in the big cities for girls who find they can't take care of their babies. They put the baby in the box, which is attached to a house or a church or something like that, and then they close the box up and ring a bell and leave. The girl never has to look back, but I wonder if maybe sometimes they do, though. I often wonder if my mother looked back. Sometimes I sit in this old oak tree by the pond and think about things like why someone would leave their baby. I'm not sure what to make of a person who would leave their baby sitting all alone in an empty boxcar. But then I don't really know the circumstance that led my parents to do that. Maybe it could be that they forgot me, or maybe they didn't want me anymore. Lots of folks find that a baby is not such a good idea. But by then it's too late and they've already have it. I go through my scenarios in my head, like what if the Crushers arrested my parents and they didn't want me to be put into an orphanage, so they didn't say anything about me hoping they could come back and find me again. It is possible they got killed and no one knew I was there, not until Bishop Steele found me. But he's my Papa now and I have to find him. So that's the first 2 chapters of The Boxcar Baby, the Steel Roots series by J.L. Mulvihill, published by 7 Star Press. And the tea for today was a delightful matcha latte mixed in with mango by the good folks at Sencha Naturals. If you are interested to find out what happens to Abigail and her father, Bishop Steele, get The Boxcar Baby and the other 2 books as well. Well, before I wrap up, let's do a breathing meditation. So find yourself in a comfortable seating position, either sitting down, lying down, or standing up. We're going to take 2 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and close our eyes, or you can softly focus on an image in front of you. We're just going to focus on our breathing, and if you find yourself getting caught up in thoughts, just gently tell yourself thinking and let the thought go by to return to focus to your breathing. Once we finish, then I will wrap the meditation with a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth again. And then we can have a sip of tea, or if you have water, a sip of your water. So without further ado, let's begin. And now as we end this meditation, take one deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Slowly open your eyes or focus, and we're back. Thanks again to J.L. Mulvihill and the folks at 7 Star Press, and also Sencha Naturals for Viridian Tea House's latest tea and tales. And you can order these items and enjoy them to your heart's content as well. So Jen, thank you so much. I miss you. Please keep writing the Steel Root series. It's a great series. It really is. So until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Raise your teacup high. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'll see you soon. Bye.